Hi, my name's Andy Gray. I'm a music composer. We're in my studio on the Isle of Wight, and I'm talking to Sonnox about their amazing plugins today. So my career started in the mid-80s in Rod Argent's music shop, and sort of got the bug for synths. I was just looking at synthesizers, and then I eventually become a writer because I was actually programming, was writing the notes as well, and I hadn't really worked out that that's actually composing. So I was being called a programmer and writing bass lines and chords for all the bands, and then eventually signed as a writer to Universal, and then sort of slowly moved into films and composing, and now basically that's what I do. So in the late 90s, just going into 2000, I got the opportunity to score a film, Swordfish, which was John Travolta and Halle Berry and Hugh Jackman's first big films. Halfway through doing the Bunker album, I come up with a track called Ready Steady Go, which is probably started in '98, and it was never going to make the Bunker album, that track, and it's the most successful track that me and Paul has ever had, even to date. And it's on Born Identity, Collateral, oh God, I can't remember the list, it's huge, it's on about 25 films. I've recently just scored a brand new TV show, which is going to be airing shortly in England, but it's in the States now, called Hunters. And that come about again through music. So a good friend of mine's Gary Numan. I wrote a track and Gary sung on it. And we had it about 18 months sort of sitting there on the shelf. It's a beautiful song, live strings and everything. And it got pitched for Hunters. And then about 4 months after they started filming, they then contacted me, did I want to try and have a go at pitching to score the show. And I ended up agreeing to 10 episodes of 13, and then that's led to all the 13, which is now finished. So I've ended up with the theme tune and the score for Hunters, and it's been brilliant. It's been really good fun. So recently I got the new Sonnox plugin, Envolution, and it come just at the right time in the middle of Hunters for me. If you're working on these film sounds where there's live strings, just wanted something I wanted more attack, but I wanted it warm. And I kept the warmth, whereas you're not just getting a transience like the old SPL, you're getting much of a warmer tone. And you can also, which I've found more useful, is deal with the tail end in a brilliant way. So being able to add sustain, which is instead of putting reverb on. So I know the drums were recorded with reverb, naturally. Why do I want to add digital reverb? But I want it to sound more reverby, so this will do that. So let me show you what I've been doing with some of the Sonnox plugins on Hunters anyway. Okay, I'm going to take you through a track for Hunters, which is actually unmixed, but you'll get to see a little bit about what I'm doing with Envolution and some of the other Sonnox plugins. I'm just going to play a little bit. So it's a kind of big filmic, atmospheric track, really. So I'll just take you through a bit on Envolution. The first I'm going to show you is on some drums that I recorded here. So we can have a listen to those drums. We click on this bus. We can see we've got EQ, we've actually got declicker as well, and Envolution down the bottom. So we can take those off, simply off like this, and this is what we get. And we can start adding Envolution, and it's not massive, the difference on this particular setting, but what it is doing is it's removing the sort of unnatural element of the sampled drums being re-triggered. Now actually these drums are right across the keyboard. Every note is a different sample, and if I open the screen here, you should be able to see that. So you never get the same note twice on those drums down there. And Envolution is helping even more by removing the sort of repetitiveness of a single stick attack, and I'm just doing that here. We're just moving this amount here, so that's how I like to have it, and then you can start adding the bite. And the more you add in this environment, the more it sticks out compared to the strings, really, so because it's that kind of film vibe. And then the tail end, this is a big difference. So it's really moving the end there. I'm using a bit of the tilt as well to let the bass end through. Yeah, this one's quite a big difference. So we go into this one here. It's another drum recorded here on the Isle of Wight. Let's play that. So this is like a floor tom. And if we look at the, close those, this has got all of this stuff. So we can go to Envolution. Here, let's have a look. Take it off. Put it in. So here I've actually added attack and release. And that's probably the biggest thing on here. Off. On. We can back off. To get this to sit in the mix, we'll be able to back off just. And now it sounds like it's further away in the distance, and then we can bring it right to the front. And I managed to balance those two different drums, both recorded in the same venue, one being the lead of attack and one being the more sustainy. But again, very easy to thin it out. And just much nicer than using, you know, an unnatural reverb to try and give it that warmth. You can just literally use that. Just those two knobs, really, they're fantastic. So I also use the Sonnox Restore suite, and I do some sort of different things with them, really. I don't just use them for what they're intended. Mainly I use them for sound design, whereas things like the declicker here, if we look, I mean, that is vital. Some of the things that I do, I don't really stop for long enough, and there's a click or a pop, or even a synth might have a little, the envelope is so short on the synth that you're hearing a click at the front. And traditionally you'd kind of stop and trying to play, if it's an analog synth, try and get that envelope still biting, but you can hear this click, click, click. Well, now you just put declicker on. You don't lose any of the attack or transients, it just focuses on those clicks. And then new to my sound design arsenal is this debuzzer. And if you listen to, say, a sound like this, if we go through here, play this sound here. So this is kind of a really ominous kind of repeating tone. And that actually started out, if I switch these off, and you'll hear what was there. This is how it sounds. So this is kind of broken up low-end synth, but once you've added these guys, you'll get this nice resonant kind of sci-fi kind of sound. And that's literally from using this. This is mainly, these are just controlling some of the push of the sound. The inflator's giving it the bite. The EQ is just making sure we don't blow everyone's system up. I mean, if it was for a film, this is for TV, so I'm watching it, but if it's for a film, you could open this right out and you can get this lovely, just with a 20 hertz cut. And then up here, we go to this, the difference is ridiculous. And that's just listening to the difference, so it's not really, and we can tune it. Or we could take it really low. Drum and bass. So it's really cool, I really love that. So another really handy one, this is kind of like a toolbox thing. It's always being used for me for lots of different stuff. I'll show you on drums. It's called Suppressor. It can be used for all kinds of things. I guess it was a de-esser originally, but it's a really cool sound design tool, this one, like a dynamic EQ. So I really like this sound here. It was a pad I made, but there's something in there that was sounding like it was clashing with the rest of the song. And I managed to kind of set that frequency in here, and then you'll hear the same thing, and now you'll get just a pad. And we've removed that, which if I take it off, that note, kind of like a submarine sonar, and then we can just take a little bit of that out. And you can actually see it on the screen what we're removing. And the cool thing is, it's removed that tone, which is saying it sounds higher to me, but it's saying it's around 1 to 2K. But what it doesn't remove is all the open air, which if I started to EQ, I might be in trouble of that. And also, that little whistly tone is moving, modulating. So with a traditional EQ, if I try to remove that frequency, it's just going to be removing it constant at -5 or -10 dB, whereas this thing is dynamic. So it's moving with it, and it's keeping the LFO intact. We'll move on to another use up here. So I was trying to go for a very rumbly sound on a lot of the score with Hunters, and I discovered the setting here. I'm trying to find, I've called it My Drums, but it's kind of a setting where it's basically enhancing bass. So if we look at the drums samples here, and we'll play this and solo here. So we'll listen to that. There's quite a lot on here. We'll open up this as well. So it's just a simple tom. But if we take this off, so we've just got quite a flat sound, and now we've got that really resonant drive. And the main thing that I'm liking about this, again, I recorded these drums in a big hall, so I didn't necessarily just want to add reverbs and stuff. And the tilt and the sustain in Envolution is what's giving me that space. And up here in Suppressor is what's giving me the lovely solid low end. And it is solid because, again, it's dynamic and it's not actually moving. As you can see, I'm not actually caning it here. I could bring that down. I can open it up to get more frequency. Maybe tend what I'm doing here. I want to keep it really below the 70 hertz, 70, 80 hertz, just for that low end drive. Sounds really cool. My vital part of my audio chain has always been, first and foremost, the dynamics. Just there's something about it. I always have the warmth on 90 to 100, always. Just love that. So at the end of the day, I add the limiter, and while I'm working all the time, I always have dynamics on, as you can see here. That's on all the time, even while I'm working, that's on. And it's doing quite a lot there, but it's very hard to hear. It's just really smooths things out. So that's basically the chain. So the chain at the end, if you look here now, is pretty much Sonnox all the way. The inflator has been really good just to give it that punch. And as I say, the limiter's the kind of mastering tool. It's these days I do tend to master stuff myself. I mean, a while you used to send it off for mastering, but to be honest, you can kind of work it up yourself now. And with a plugin like limiter at the end, you know it's going to be just loud enough and you know, not too distorted and stuff like that. It just gives it the right tone without just overdriving it. Like some of these limiters tend to add some sort of distortion that just gives you this perception of level. But if you're working on this kind of cinematic music, it just doesn't really work. It just starts to get muddy. So that's, you know, that's kind of the end of the last chain there. I adopted the dynamics and EQ on all my mixes since the day it came out, and you know, I've never looked back really. I've got to say, with all the Sonnox plugins, the one thing that I love is even declicker, which is a big tool of mine. I just use the preset, the default preset. I don't even go for it. You just open it, that works. It just feels like it's hardware. That's what I like about it. It's not just the way it looks, but the sound. You know, there's something that reminds you of back in the days when you were using hardware, and there's a confidence with that that just feels and sounds, you know, instant.